Hi folks, welcome to a special episode of the Dan and Derek Show, our Rise of Skywalker spoiler review and debate. So we both came out of this movie feeling a little differently about it. Dan was a big fan of it. I was not so much. So first of all, we're going to go through it. We're going to talk about the scenes, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. So in case the title hasn't told you, in case you didn't pick it up for the first time, from this point forward, there are going to be massive, major, ultimate spoilers. The storyline, the important scenes. Click away if you don't want to get spoiled. All right. Okay, so let me start off first. Rise of Skywalker. The opening crawl right away gave me some issues.
Okay, what was wrong with the opening crawl?
The opening crawl was, hey, since the last movie, Palpatine's alive. Let's see what happens.
That's right. And I will say, as I said in our quick little non-spoiler thing that we did a little while ago, the pacing of it was like, just boom, 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 right? So you get all this stuff. And they just kind of said, hey, during this time, since the last time you saw, all this stuff happened. Now, that's stuff that I would have liked to have seen, but, if they're going to finish out the story, they had to get to the point that they were now. And granted, some of it felt a little forced, because pardon the
pun. We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Yeah, but they were trying to tell a story. They were trying to get to a certain point, and so what they did was they kind of put you to a certain point and caught you up.
And the whole reason they did that though was because Rian Johnson killed off Snoke. That's the whole reason. If Snoke was still there, Palpatine never would have come back.
Heard that
J.J. Abrams could go and sit there and he is lying. that was totally Snoke's storyline, and they might now. Don't get me wrong. He might have originally planned to bring Palpatine in during the second part of the movie, in the second movie originally, but at no point was it just, hey, Palpatine's alive. I think the story would have worked better with Snoke in the big bad place, anyways. But anyways, so that was my problem with the opening crawl. Then we come to Kylo Ren in the Force.
Oh, one quick point, that there was something that they mentioned in the opening crawl that happened within the Fortnite event. So if you were watching Fortnite, if you were part of the event like I was, then you saw this thing. So you guys can look it up. I'm not going to, I guess this is a spoiler full review, but if you don't know what it is, go ahead and look it up. And if you're on that Fortnite event, maybe you'll get a kick out of it. I didn't notice it right off the bat, but then afterwards, after it was pointed out to me, I was like, oh, that's cool. That was there. But anyway.
Okay. Anyways, so then we come into Kylo Ren in the Force. And I was like, okay, maybe this movie isn't going to be so bad. Because that was a pretty awesome scene right there. Kylo Ren going through the Force and just mowing through guys with a lightsaber. And there are a couple parts that I was a little wonky on the visual presentation. Like his backwards moonwalking slide into stabbing a guy, I thought was kind of funky. But for the most part, that was a pretty awesome scene. And then he reaches in and he picks up what looks like a Sith holocron. And I am fanboying out. I'm like, oh, this is how they're going to bring Palpatine back. And that's how they should have brought him back, was through a holocron. But no, it wasn't actually a holocron. It was just a really fancy GPS. All it does is say, go here. And then we immediately cut to Kylo going there, and he's on the planet, and as soon as he's there, he meets Snoke. I mean, he meets Palpatine.
Yeah, he meets Palpatine, yes.
And that was like, that's too much. You could tell it's just getting point A to point B.
That's right. That's what they did, was they immediately took you from as soon as you came into the movie, you left where you left off on the second movie, and then suddenly they just jumped you way forward ahead to here, and basically said, this is what happened in between, and now you're here. So that was jarring. I will give you that. And I know, I know that the reason they did that was to get you there so they could tell the story. But I wish that there was,
because we don't know how Kylo knew that was there or anything else.
Right.
He just suddenly, oh, this is this thing, I'm going to follow it, and all of a sudden, here's Palpatine.
There was more story that could have been told to get us there.
I liked the little thing about having Snoke heads floating around,
yeah, that was pretty cool.
And such, but all of a sudden, just Palpatine's there, and I was just like, and then Kylo he's like, oh, I'm going to kill you, and then he holds off on killing him, and then Snoke reveals this giant fleet.
Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah. I keep saying Snoke.
That's right.
Because Snoke should have been the bad guy. That's why I keep saying it. But Palpatine reveals this giant fleet that where do you get the crew for? Where do you get the material to build? And why didn't Kylo know it was there? And when he's inside of this big giant room, how does he know there's all of a sudden a fleet floating out there?
Yeah. And that was probably one of the things that I didn't like about it, was the fact that he had all of these people that were involved with him that there's no real explanation for. You just have to assume that he's been building this fleet and this army of loyalists and devotees, that are in his that happen to fill his stands at the right moment. It's like, wait a second.
And no one said anything.
That's right. Nobody said anything, and suddenly he's got an entire, Super Bowl stadium full of people.
Yeah.
This
probably 3 Super Bowl stadiums full of people. He had like 10,000 ships or something stupid.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I'm just saying, just in his little arena.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right, so we cut to Rey, and this is the first time a Star Wars ever said, that's bad CGI. She looked like she was on a green screen.
Okay.
And it looked, the rocks looked fake, and she looked like she was sitting on a green screen and was superimposed onto the screen, and I did not like it.
So I'll say maybe I didn't notice it. So
I did. It was jarring to me how bad the CGI was at that point. So then there's a whole thing with her training with Leia, and at no point have we been told that Leia's been trained as a Jedi.
That's totally. When I saw that, I was like,
that's
totally logical.
I accepted it, but I was like, at no point have we. And then later on, they did show her training for 5 seconds.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't even matter to me. To me, that's like, that's something that they could have brought up earlier. But I'm glad that she was. My first thought was, hey, she was trained. I thought she should have been trained. I'm glad that she was trained.
And truthfully, that's not a big deal. Then there's the whole her running through the thing, and all of a sudden she gets angry and stabs the stupid little droid because it was beating her up. And I was like, okay, whatever. The spy said that Palpatine had a fleet on Exegol,
yes.
And then all of a sudden Rey remembered that among all of this stuff was an encoded message from Luke Skywalker himself, detailing how he tracked down Exegol. But she managed to crack this code that he was trying to use to hide where the location was. But okay, whatever, that's cool. I'll accept that.
Okay.
They go to the planet. She gets gifted the little necklace thing. Okay, that's fine. I'm cool with everything up to this point. Then comes the part that made me angry.
Okay.
Which was the whole Force thing between Kylo and her, which I was fine with because they showed it, they previously established it, whatever. But then he grabs the necklace off of her and he has it in his hand. And it's not like a Force projection. It is something he hands to someone else and says, tell me where this is from.
Yes.
That is Force teleportation across who knows how many light years.
Yes.
No.
Okay, well,
that breaks the series.
No,
right there. It totally breaks the series.
I totally disagree.
First of all, here's a question. Why didn't he just grab her then and bring her with him over to there?
I don't know what his rules are, but you're forgetting the definition of what the Force is.
Anything you want it to do.
It's a plot device to move the series forward. That's what it is. It's always been that, because you started off with.
The problem is that this is another example where it breaks the storyline.
No, I disagree. It doesn't break the storyline. All it is, it shows another power that the Force is capable of. I mean, you can be like, oh no, I in the Force handbook, that was written by Yoda. I have a spoiler for you folks. I'm sorry, but Yoda's not real. Okay, and so the thing is, you start off in A New Hope, where the Force allows you to become a ghost and gives you better hand-eye coordination. Okay, you can hit a small target with it, right? That's all the Force is inside A New Hope. You can, but you can, you have the better hand-eye coordination where you can, even without the eye, you can hear better, right? And hit it stuff. So that's all it does. It gives you better
coordination. About hearing. That was about sensing
it's about feeling.
But
right.
Either way,
that's all you have. And then the second one, all of a sudden you're jumping super high, you're doing stuff, and then by the third one, you're shooting lightning out of your fingertips. And so
only one guy.
Yes, but the Force has always been something that evolves over time, and people have had issues with it ever since that original trilogy. Even though each series showed you a huge different set of things that you can do with the Force, as it evolved over time, people have, after the original trilogy, people have just had issues with it. It's like, you can't do that with the Force. That's not how the Force works. The Force works. The Force, to me, has always been something that has infinite power. You can do anything with it as long as you're strong enough and you believe. It's like the Matrix, right? you got to believe.
But Dan, the problem is that breaks the entire plot. Because Vader, Anakin, whatever you want to call him, was and still is, no matter what they try to say, the most powerful Force user to have ever existed. He was literally created by the Force, which that was a whole stupid thing they did right there anyways. But we're going to go with that. Say he was literally created by the Force, okay? So how come he wasn't able to find his own kids across millions of light years like he was able to, and then grab them and bring them with him?
Well,
and why didn't Kylo, if he wanted to capture Rey, just grab her and pull her through this Force transportation?
Now you're trying to get me to explain limitations in something that doesn't have any real rules.
If you can, but see, that's the problem though. It has to have at least a certain set number of rules. And the thing is, now here's the thing: if they had just done this one time, I would have forgiven it. But it became one of the most important plot devices in this entire movie that he was able to do that. It was, I mean, the fact that you break an ability and then you use that ability to go and to not even further, but to climax the storyline is a hallmark of bad writing. That is because all of a sudden, if they could do anything with the Force, then they're never in any danger. There's never any danger. They could be shot at like. Later on, she grabs a bloody starship out of the sky, Dan. Why didn't she just stop Kylo Ren in his tracks when he was coming at her with the thing? Why didn't he shoot at her?
Rules of the Force,
No, there's no rules of the Force, apparently. It's whatever the writers want it to be.
Exactly, that's how it is. That's what it is. But you can go and justify these things. You can say that, well, obviously you can't pull another Force user. First of all, it probably requires a ton amount of power because the amount of power that it requires for you to project an image so far. And they've both been trained. They've both grown in the Force since the last time we saw them. Or you can assume at least that Kylo Ren has been training himself, been practicing. And I assume that it requires a ton of power just to do that. And trying to pull another person that is also Force sensitive, maybe you can't find just a random person and pull them to you. Maybe it requires so much power to pull an object that big. I don't know, but you can say those things, and it can be part, and eventually it could be part of canon. So, what will eventually be part of canon?
At this point, you have sat there and you've broken it so bad that there's no tension anymore. There's no reason to think they're ever in any danger. There's no reason to think they're ever in any danger.
Because you see, like in the heat of battle, or at certain times, that doing something that's complex or any sort of heavy lifting with the Force requires time and an effort. And that's why you don't see it so much in a battle where they're concentrating, they're trying to just not accidentally hit themselves with the lightsaber, So it requires a lot of concentration, requires a lot of power, and that's why you don't see it so much. So I could see that. There are certain rules that they seem to always follow, at least so far, right?
Apparently those don't matter anymore.
Well,
so anyways, all right.
Yeah.
So let's keep going.
Yeah.
So then they move on, and Rey goes out to confront Kylo Ren. And like I was saying, Kylo for some reason decides he doesn't want to shoot her. And even though she's so powerful, she can't stop his TIE fighter. She decides to jump over it, cut off the wing. He crashes this huge fiery explosion, and then walks out like he's freaking Bruce Willis in Die Hard, totally unscathed. Not even his hair is still blowing in the wind perfectly. Doesn't even have dirt on him.
The Force can be used to protect yourself, to keep yourself alive.
Okay. So
that's established.
So then they come over and it says, "Hey, Chewie's been captured." We don't see this. We see Chewie go off and just wander off and then disappear, and all of a sudden he's captured. Which, okay, that's fine. They caught him by surprise. Whatever. And then all of a sudden she sees this thing flying off, the one that Poe pointed at, and she tries to stop it. Yes. And she stops a friggin' starship that has achieved escape velocity from leaving.
Yeah, it hasn't achieved escape velocity.
It has enough thrust to achieve
escape velocity.
In the air.
It's just in the air.
It has achieved enough thrust.
No, it's just in the air. That's all that is. So, you could take a Harrier, right? It floats. It just because it's in the air and it's taking off doesn't mean it's achieved escape velocity. It's just hovering.
But this thing is leaving the planet. It is on its way off the planet.
It's on its way.
And she stops.
Either way,
it's flying.
Either way,
she's at least several hundred yards away from a ship at thrusters. That it turns up its thrusters to full, and she still holds it in place.
And what's the difference between Luke Skywalker not being able to lift an X-Wing and Yoda being able to lift an X-Wing.
But Yoda was able to lift an X-Wing that wasn't actively trying to get away.
But either way,
lifted it up against gravity. She sat there and grabbed something that was more powerful than gravity, trying to actively get away from her, and stopped it.
There's no limit to the Force as long as you have.
As long as the writers say there's
no. As long as
the writers say there's not.
No, that's established. That's established that your strength in the Force is more about. Well, first of all, you're born with a certain amount of strength, I guess, but your strength in the Force is more about belief.
But see, and that's the thing. There's no reason to train them. There's no reason to train.
There is.
There's no reason to train because you can just, if you just, I am a believer, and therefore I could sit there and teleport objects, and I could stop things in space, and I am God. It's walking the earth. Is basically what it is. And so, anyways, so Kylo Ren, and then all of a sudden, they're sitting there having this tug of war, and she blows up the ship with Force lightning, something that by their own canon they've established is something only extremely powerful and extremely dedicated dark side users can wield. So she would have to go really deep into the dark side to go and use Force lightning, but she accidentally uses it. And then the one thing that I agreed with that they immediately undid was killing Chewie. I was like, okay, if she accidentally kills Chewie and feels guilt, this is actual character development, and then they take that away. There's no point for that.
Well, I figured that Chewie wasn't dead because I thought I saw that there was 2 troop carriers. And so I figured that the one that they blew up was not Chewie. At least I was hoping. I didn't want Chewie to die.
But no, don't get me wrong. It's more about the fact that that was something for the story, for the writers to have done that would have gone and added depth to the story, added depth to Rey's character. Because that's always been the main hit on her, is she's a 2-dimensional character. All she does is walk through and things happen around her that go and help her out. That's and we're about to get to another one of those.
That's what happens with the Force.
Yeah. So, anyways, so then they're all sitting there and they're going on these speeder bikes, and they're flying away and they're shooting and everything else, and the stormtroopers have got their Rocket Man jetpacks on.
Yes.
And they blow her up, and they all go flying through the air, and they land into stuff, and they all stop. Now, first of all, there's the fact that this is quicksand that starts sucking them down so fast they can't get out of it.
Right.
But it didn't start doing that until after the fight was over. They landed into this, and they were in there for a good 2 minutes before the quicksand is like, oh, wait, there's people here. I think I'm going to take you down now. So there's that. There's the fact that Rey could just float everyone out of this. We've seen her powerful enough to float rocks and stop starships and everything else. She can just float everyone up. But even she just sits there and sinks down, down, down. And then instead of her, because I thought they were going to go and have her pick everyone up. But no, everyone would have died if it weren't for the Deus Ex Machina of the writers deciding that this leads to a secret cavern system where they find the guy that they've been looking for. And that's my big problem with this movie, was that everything is based 100% on coincidence. There's so many plot points that are only resolved through sheer coincidence and luck is the problem.
Well, yeah. So this is the thing. Is now I have to try to explain away these things, which I could. Okay, I could explain away each of these things. Like I could say that perhaps that she. Once they started sinking, she was able to sense with the Force that there was an open space below, and there was nothing dangerous right there at that moment, right below them, and so she let them go into it. So I could say that, or I could.
She wasn't acting like she knew. She was. Okay, so they're inside of the cave now. They find this little dagger, and 3PO translates it, but he can't tell them because it's a Sith thing. That actually makes sense. That's actually a nice little bit of world building they added in there. I thought that was pretty cool. Sure. That you have these people who, if they can translate stuff, the Sith are so evil that they won't even let you translate like a recipe. You know, if it's written in Sith runes, it is verboten. So I'm cool with that.
No Sith cookies for you.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if the dark side has cookies.
That's right.
You're not allowed to eat them.
Yeah. They're not even giving you the recipe.
That's right. So anyways, so then they go and they're like, okay, so we got to figure out what's going on with 3PO's brain and try to hack him, and we know this guy. So they go to this world, and they got the stormtroopers coming in, and then we start running into a recurring plot point that kind of irritates me, which is the Knights of Ren are following them, and they're not doing anything. They just watch them the entire time. They're just like, okay, this is where they're at. We're going to stay here menacingly and do nothing. So that was an irritation. So then we meet Poe's former love interest / partner or whatever. And
Which is nice to give him a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with that. Yeah. So then they come in there, and all of a sudden they have these stakes about 3PO, and they got to wipe his memory to get to it. And I can see why that would possibly be that way. But the problem I have is they're like, doesn't R2D2 back up your memory. It's like, oh, well, you don't trust them and everything, da-da-da. Okay, well, they're in this electronic hacker's shop. Why don't they just download his memory while they're standing there, hack his brain, and then re-upload it? It makes no sense. It's a contrived plot point to try to put tension in a tensionless
That's the thing, I can still explain that away, but I won't.
But there's no reason. See, that's the problem. Yeah. You shouldn't have to explain away. That's why these things are called plot holes.
Yeah. Well,
they're holes in the plot. Yeah. So then they go and they get away and they get the magical little space button, which actually I don't have a problem with because I'm assuming that it works on the IFF, the Identify Friendly or Foe system, and lets them get wherever they need to go. That's right. So they go to the destroyer, and they have this whole thing. She mind tricks some people, which now that I know that she's been training under Leia, I don't have a problem with. See, it's when she doesn't get abilities magically, I don't have problems with that.
Yeah, but I will say, in the movie before, where she actually used that as
it wasn't even a movie before. It was 2 movies before.
Yeah, but as I've discussed with him, when she didn't have any experience, she still had talked to Han Solo. She knew the Force was real.
But here's the point.
She was Force sensitive.
You are directly contradicting, though, the writers. The writers have said that Kylo implanted into her mind the methods of using the Force in that fashion.
Oh, okay.
Which is, of course, means, once again, training is pointless. Because you can just sit there and have them directly transfer
it's
stuff.
It's just a different type of training. It's the Matrix type training.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know Kung Fu.
Yeah. So anyway, they go on there and they rescue Chewie, and there's these 3 guys, they're a ragtag bunch going against a legion of trained soldiers, and in the old movies,
right. Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Luke
but they were taking cover and they were shooting and everything else in the original series. These guys are literally running down the middle of a hall towards a group of bad guys. Didn't get touched one time and took out an entire platoon by themselves, just running straight at them. It's like they didn't dodge. There wasn't serpentine. They didn't take cover. They just killed them all.
Because they knew they were stormtroopers. Anyway.
So, and then they get the one obligatory hero shot in the arm moment.
Right, yeah.
That's needed, of course. And then you get Rey and Kylo confronting each other, and I was like, all right, we're gonna get a good battle here or something. And then they go and she jumps off and gets on and everything else. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering that this is powerful enough thrusters to go and almost blow Kylo Ren back using the Force staying still. And Rey's just chilling. She's just chilling. She doesn't have a problem. There's no the thrusters have no effect on her whatsoever, and so she just runs aboard. So okay, whatever. Anyway, so then they go down to the planet, and for the first time since they've had this thing, she starts playing with it. It's like, oh, there's this little thing, and then she sits there and she manages to stand in the exact spot.
I will say though,
at the exact angle. Yeah. And the ship hasn't moved or anything else to exactly match up. And she noticed that the outline matched the ship. And it didn't match this way. It only matched the one way. Come on.
It's 50%. It's for right-handed people.
Exactly, I guess. No, because if you're left-handed, it goes like that. But then, but it would be backwards.
It doesn't work. It's right-handed people.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's only for right-handed. It's for righties.
So, anyways, that was a whole bunch of contrivance and everything. And then we get her going aboard, and she meets with her evil self, her vision like Luke had of Vader. Except for the fact that first of all, it had one of the lightsaber bows, which is an awesome configuration, double-sided lightsabers. But she was using it folded up like some kind of weird double-bladed lightsaber, which made no sense. And then she doesn't beat it. She gets her butt kicked by it, and then that's the end of it. She never has to confront it again. She's immediately confronted her. She's beaten her dark side, even though it beat the crap out of her.
No, she just left it, which I think is perfectly fine. If Luke Skywalker had gone into the tree and then walked back out, even if he got his butt kicked, he learned something, I guess.
So Kylo's there, and they're fighting, and they finally sit there and have a realistic fight where Kylo just kicks the crap out of her. And then at the last second, Leia, since they had to go and kill her character off because of the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, Leia sits there and she doesn't appear the Force ghost. She doesn't say anything to Kylo about forgiving him or anything else. She just says his name. And that's enough for him to get stunned and drop his lightsaber and leave his guard alone. And she stabs him through the liver.
Well, I assumed that his mother let him know that she was dead with that. And that's well established that you don't have to appear as a Force ghost. You could do an Obi-Wan and just say, Luke, use the Force, Luke.
She didn't even say that. She literally just said Kylo Ren.
That's right.
Or Ben. She said Ben. That's all she said. She said 3 letters. She didn't even say 3 words.
That's all right.
Ben.
Whatever it was, it imparted.
Oh, no.
He,
Come on.
I felt that she imparted the fact that she had died and said his name, and he knew it, right? And so...
which should have made him more powerful on the dark side.
But that's the thing is he's always been somebody who wavered between the light and the dark. And that just happened to bring him over.
So anyway, so she stabs him, and then she uses her new Force healing power, which I think that they put it in the Mandalorian.
It's something that's established.
I think it's not. It's
established in like the Clone Wars and stuff
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, but not to that extent. She stabbed him through the liver, Dan. That's a major organ that she was healing.
But
up
she's
there.
very strong too.
I guess so. So I didn't have as big a problem with that. It was very convenient, but I didn't have a huge problem with that. And then she leaves him and goes flying off. He has his moment with Han, which I didn't have a problem with, except for I thought it was kind of cheesy. You know, that's all. I just thought it was. I just thought it was an excuse to bring back Harrison Ford for a fanboy movie.
Hey, that's fine. I was okay with that.
So.
Thanks for doing that for me, guys.
So she flies off. She flies to wherever Luke was staying at. And then there's the next problem I had. She decides she's going to throw away the lightsaber. She throws it away, and Luke catches it as a Force ghost. Mm-hmm. Okay? At no point have we ever seen a Force ghost physically interact with anything in the real world.
Yoda called down lightning and burnt up the...
That's interacting with the Force itself. That is not interacting with a physical object.
Maybe he used the Force to suspend it in his Force ghost hand.
That is, he timed it so perfectly.
All I can say...
It looked like he was holding it in his hand, and it made an audible sound as it slapped into his palm.
Hey, it's the Force, baby. No, but all I can say is that if the Force makes you more powerful than you can even imagine, then I think that being able to catch a lightsaber is probably within that realm. So that was Obi-Wan's words, not mine.
So anyways, after she blows up this ship and lights it on fire and everything else, she finds the GPS system is still intact. Yeah. So she hooks it up in the X-Wing, which I thought was a cool callback. I did like the fact that
Kylo
she used
was
the
still
X-Wing.
intact. Wait, I'm sorry. Anyway, but go ahead.
Yeah, I thought the X-Wing was a cool callback that she used the X-Wing to fly off to confront Palpatine.
Right.
So she gets to Palpatine. So here's the issue. Palpatine at one point dispatched one of his destroyers with a planet-destroying weapon on it because, of course, it's a planet-destroying weapon involved. When there's never...
Now, that's one thing I didn't... That's another thing that I didn't like. There's only a couple things I didn't like, and one thing was the planet-destroying weapons on...
all of his destroyers.
On his Star Destroyers, because it took a moon-sized ship to have a planet-destroying weapon. But... Of course, that was...
It's transistors. They went from vacuum tubes to
exactly.
transistors.
That was like 20 years ago. So it's the difference between,
a cell phone and a smartphone.
That's right,
right?
A cell phone and a smartphone. Right.
So anyways...
Smartwatch.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, so here's my question, though. So the whole rebellion idea relies on them catching these guys while they're still planet-side. Mm-hmm. He has deployed a ship already to destroy something. Why didn't he just have his fleet in orbit around the planet? It's not like he had communication issues. They could talk instantaneously.
But they were just there hiding. So.
But why? They were in the uncharted parts of space. There's nowhere for them. And if you find them, you find a fleet of 10,000 ships. Mm-hmm. So that made no sense. The whole plot point about them stopping this fleet. Because let's face facts. If there had been even a modicum of writerly sense, they wouldn't have written themselves into that corner. Because the fact is that anyone would have put them in orbit, and then it was over. The war was over. Palpatine wins, even if he dies, because there's no stopping a fleet of 10,000 Star Destroyers, every single one of them armed with planet-destroying weapons. It's impossible to stop. They wrote this in the corner, so they came up with this stupid idea. They decided to keep them on the planet. And the only time to stop them, they can only launch at this one moment, even though we already know that he's launched ships from there before. Because he went out to destroy someone. It makes no sense for him to keep his fleet on the planet. It completely destroys any modicum of sense to this. So Rey shows up.
I don't know. It's for supply reasons. They're closer together. Save fuel going from ship to ship to drop off the deviled eggs and stuff they gotta serve.
Still, whatever.
Yeah.
So Rey shows up. Palpatine says he wants her and everything else, and then convinces her that they're gonna and starts destroying because the rebels arrive. And now here's the other thing. So they come around. They're gonna destroy the navigation beacon. and they transfer it to one of the main ships. So they try to go attack them. Why didn't they just play hot potato with the navigation beacon?
Yeah, I thought about that too.
You know, so it makes once again plot hole right there. They could have just played hot potato with the navigational beacon.
Yeah,
you know? And then it took them 10 seconds to transfer it from point A to point B.
Right.
But it took them 3 minutes to try to transfer it back.
It's the cooldown period. It's the cooldown, the reboot period.
So anyway, so then you got Rey, and she's in there, and she's surrounded by apparently the spirit of every Sith and everything, and he's gonna get her to kill him. Kylo Ren shows up, and he's getting the crap kicked out of him by the Knights of Ren, who finally start to do something. And they're not fighting smart. They take their turns one at a time. It's just that the numbers kind of overwhelm him a bit, even though I don't see how, because they're coming at him one at a time. Mm-hmm. And so they're coming at him, and they're overwhelming him, and then the biggest teleportation bullcrap I've ever seen. She sits there and she teleports it. And here's the thing. It's not like she hands it to him and he reaches out and grabs it. She holds it back here and then he grabs it back here. Makes no sense. Why does he have to grab it from the same stance she's grabbing it from? It makes no sense. He grabs it, cuts down all the Knights of Ren, because apparently all they were there for was to follow people around. The Knights of Ren were apparently nothing more than the messenger boys of Kylo.
They're extremely skilled trackers.
Who had weird-looking weapons that did nothing else. So anyways, so Kylo slices them all down. He comes in there. Palpatine kicks the crap out of him, which he truthfully should. Decides to suck their life force out, which is, okay, that's a new force power. Whatever, it's the dark side. We don't actually know a whole bunch about dark side users.
That's true.
So I was like, okay, this is a dark side ability we haven't seen before.
I can see that as a dark side power.
And it existed in the Legends continuity, although you had to have physical contact in the Legends continuity. But whatever. Okay, I'll accept this as a thing. And then he decides to throw Kylo off a cliff. And we all know, since we didn't see him die, Kylo's not dead. It's just that simple. He just does it to get rid of him.
He pulled a Palpatine.
Yes. And he leaves Rey still alive, even though he was sucking her force energy out, alive on the ground. Mm-hmm. And he sits there and he starts blowing up all the ships with his force energy, which I thought
he was saving a little room for dessert.
Which I thought was really cool. I thought that was awesome that he was able to do that. I thought that was a good thing. Okay. And then Rey sits there and hears all the voices of the past Jedi, and she gets up. And I'm still not having a huge issue with this. Okay, I'm just wondering what's going to happen. So my thought on how this was going to happen was he's going to attack Rey and be attacking her, and Kylo's going to come in and get him, so they work as a team to get him. Right. So he starts Force Lightning Rey with Force Lightning that was destroying an entire fleet of ships, by the way. Not like a little bit of ships, but like an entire giant fleet that almost outnumbered his fleet. The only reason his fleet was winning was because they were better armed. Mm-hmm. And he starts blasting her with all this Force energy. And it's not like going through to hit her or anything. She's holding it off with a single lightsaber.
But that's established also from Mace Windu.
But he wasn't using full energy on Mace. Right. And Mace was a much more skilled Jedi. Mm-hmm. He'd been doing this for who knows how many years. So anyway, so she's blocking it. And then comes the part that just melted my brain. She pulls out a second lightsaber and crosses it. And for some reason, a second lightsaber makes her 3 times as strong.
Well, so
why?
It could be that the blade of the lightsaber actually absorbs that energy. Well, we know that it reflects it back. Maybe it also helps power the lightsaber. There's a lot of energy that goes into a lightsaber. So if you look online, there's a video of some guys who made basically made a proto lightsaber.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but either way, just the energy that they put in that to make that tungsten rod glow was as much as a normal North American household. That it's like half the power of an entire household just to make that. So you can imagine a plasma weapon that's held together by a force field, how much energy that might take. Now, if you were building that, it would make sense to me to have the capability of it to basically power itself with something hitting the blade. So
we're talking. Here's the thing.
Besides, lightning has no mass. It's just, I don't know what she was even pushing her back. If you want to know the truth.
But here's the thing. So no, don't forget.
Lots of ways you could explain
Force lightning is a manifestation of the Force. Is a physical manifestation of the Force. Okay, there is no logical reason a second lightsaber would go and make her stronger. Because that's what happened. She was barely holding it back.
Yes, but...
By the way, she was holding it back with two hands.
Yeah.
She lets go with one hand to grab the second lightsaber, and she's holding it back just as well with one hand as she was with two. And then pulls out the second lightsaber, and it makes her, I would say, 4 times as strong. Because it not only stopped the lightning, but let her just walk through it to get to him. And then when she gets close enough...
It's absorbing twice as much, or reflecting twice as much.
And then for no reason whatsoever, because it wasn't doing this when she was back there, it starts reflecting it back at him.
But that's the same thing that happened with Mace Windu.
But he never blocked it. When he hit it with his lightsaber, it immediately reflected.
But he was already close, though. He was already that close.
But there was no reason for it. All right, whatever. There's still no reason for it to reflect it at all. If it wasn't reflecting back there's no reason for it to reflect at all once he got closer. But she was able to walk through his force lightning, close him up, he blows up, and then she dies from the explosion. Mm-hmm. So Kylo Ren crawls up, goes to her. A guy who's been a dark side user almost his entire life, has never shown any affinity for healing, brings her back from death, which is the one force power we've repeatedly been told is impossible.
We don't know if she was dead.
She was dead as a bloody doornail. Her eyes were glazed and open. She wasn't breathing.
We don't know if
she was gone. Because if she wasn't dead, then why did Kylo die after he went and brought her back? She was on her way to being a Force ghost. The only reason they didn't ghost her immediately, because I have no doubt they're going to go and make her a Force ghost at some point in the future.
It was too
the
late.
only reason
too love.
The only reason that they didn't Force ghost her was just so they could have Kylo bring her back and Force ghost him. That was it. So he brings her back using a Force power we've specifically been told repeatedly in the past is an impossible fact for the Force to do. And then what's the first thing she does is she kisses this guy who... Not even yesterday, probably that morning, she stabbed through the liver after he tried to kill her.
They always had something going on. They always had something going on. They always had feelings. That was apparent, but they, it's just that one.
There was no point to it.
It's the bad boy, the good girl, even though they were both waffling between the light and the dark.
So, and then Kylo dies, and he immediately Force ghosts, which... I can kind of see, because it kind of happened with Vader. He came back to the good side. He was powerful enough. He would go Force Ghost. So then she goes back to Tatooine and buries the lightsabers. She has her own new yellow lightsaber, which anyone who knows Star Trek lore, that immediately kind of triggers
Star Wars
lore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows Star Wars lore, that kind of immediately triggers, because that was the color of the Jedi Temple guards, and it's a very rare lightsaber guard. They didn't even make them themselves; they were awarded them.
Right.
So she's all of a sudden it's a super rare lightsaber.
Well, it's all about
herself.
It's all about the crystal you find, right? It's all about the crystal you get that powers it. There's an amber one.
See, that's the thing. They haven't 100% established in the current canon how the lightsaber colors get their color.
Okay, well maybe it's only rare because it was an award originally.
Anyway,
so then she's like, well, I'm the last one. I'm gonna go ahead and choose whatever I want.
So, anyways. So she gets this lightsaber color, and then comes the cringiest moment of this entire cringe fest of a movie, which was her like, "I'm Rey Skywalker."
Yeah,
what the crap was that?
Well, she never had a last name. You might as well pick a good
Palpatine.
one.
She knew she was a Palpatine. Yeah. She's passing herself as identity theft. She needs to go and be arrested by the authorities.
She was adopted. She was adopted post Ghost. So by 2 Force Ghosts, she's adopted. It's fine.
But hold on, I would point something out. She's adopted by the 2 Force Ghosts that are Skywalkers. That means that once again we get back to what's his name, Luke and Leia. Once again, that's a wrong relationship, Dan. Just like in the first movie. I mean, come on. That was so cringeworthy. Oh my goodness.
All I can say is she didn't have a last name. If she wants to have somebody as her parents or feel like that she was adopted, I'm okay with that.
The pacing was all wrong. There was too many coincidences. The writing was lazy. They just tried to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. They didn't care about.
I think part of it was they had to.
Why did Palpatine come out and just say, "I am here"?
He needed Rey so that he could have so he could have the full body.
He could have used Kylo. He would have easily used Kylo. He knew Kylo was just as powerful. Kylo was already there. Makes no sense for him not to let Kylo strike him down in anger and then become the Emperor through Kylo. That's another thing. Why didn't he let Kylo kill him instead of convincing him, hold off while I show you this fleet so you can go do all this other stuff?
Maybe he thought that he needed, or maybe for some reason he needed somebody that was a blood relative. that had the same genetic qualities or something. Maybe Rey was a little bit stronger and he wanted the strongest Jedi. Because to me, it seemed like she was stronger. She was stronger from the outset, and she eventually would have probably surpassed him.
Well, it's not that hard to be stronger when you don't have to train. I mean, let's just face facts. She's repeatedly throughout until this last movie where we actually saw her get training. She did stuff she should not have been able to do with no training. She defeated Kylo several times in lightsaber combat, even though he was repeatedly
but he was hurt
trained better than her.
At some point, he was. There's lots of reasons that
there's lots of trying to patch over the plot holes, is what you're trying to say. So, anyways, okay, that's our spoiler review. That's our debate. You let us know in the comments who you think had the better side of it. Overall, my recommendation is I would see the movie. I wouldn't see it in theaters. I'd wait till it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming. Unless you got to have the Star Wars experience, in which case, just, okay, whatever.
And I would say, go ahead and see it in the movie. Go ahead and see it in the theater if you want to. I think that it was worth the money. There were people that
not clapped. The $50 R2D2 popcorn.
That was pretty cool, though. That was pretty cool.
At the theater we went to, I guess it was AMC. I don't know if they're doing it across nationwide. They had this combo popcorn bucket / drink holder that was a life. It wasn't life size, but it was like one quarter scale,
1/3 or something.
Like 1/3 scale R2D2, like really detailed, and the head portion was your cup, and you take the head off, and there's a popcorn container.
Right. So you can stick a straw in the head of R2D2 and suck out soda. Nice.
$50.
Yes.
Oh. But if I wasn't married, I might have got it.
Like, yeah, exactly. When the package itself was like it's $20-something or $30 or something.
And they're like, oh, it's refillable. Oh, we can bring this back. No, it's refillable today.
Yeah. So I would have brought it back. Jumanji, you have your R2D2. So.
My seeing eye droid.
Yeah. So.
Anyways.
The only thing I will say that, like I was saying earlier, is that he left a little bit of Rey and Kylo for whatever reason. So why didn't he just suck them dry? That was another thing that I had.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason for him to have left them, except for the fact of plot convenience. And that was the biggest problem I had, is that you could tell that J.J. Abrams sat there, and I have no blame on J.J. Abrams, even though I know he's one of the primary writers, because of the fact that I see what he tried to do. He tried to take his original 2 movies he was going to do in the trilogy, and he shoved them into 1 movie and tried to, at the same time, undo Rian Johnson's problems, like that comment that the Holdo maneuver is a 1 in a million chance of happening, but he never explained why it was a 1 in a million. He just said it was, and it was a big explanation.
So you talk about him undoing Rian Johnson's mistakes, but was what was the best movie out of the 3?
The Force Awakens.
Right. Well, so wait.
That was the first one.
Yeah, that was the first one. I like the second one better. I like the second one better. And,
it's okay. It's America. You're allowed to be wrong.
And I've read where there's some people that like the third one better. Believe it or not.
My ranking of the 3 most recent would be Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker, and The Last Jedi. Overall, in the trilogy, the last 2 would definitely rank in the bottom 4.
I would say my favorites out of the 3 would be Last Jedi, Force Awakens, and then Rise of Skywalker. Yes,
folks. That's it for tonight. It's getting late. We thank you for your time. Please remember to like and subscribe, to go and check out our other videos, our reaction videos. We are currently reacting to Naruto, The Mandalorian, but we're having issues. So if you look at our Mandalorians, you see we've got episode 1 and episode 2 up, but episode 3 has been waiting for a couple weeks. It's because we're getting copyright claims from Disney. We're reacting to Naruto, Hunter x Hunter also, and we'll be adding some more in the future. Also stay tuned, because we're going to do some other fun stuff, like at some point in the near future, we're going to be doing Hot Pepper Extreme Trivia, where we will go and answer trivia questions, and if you get it wrong, you got to eat a hot pepper, so that'll be fun. So, all right, folks.
I'm Dan.
I'm Derek. Have a good rest of the night.
Yeah.